All right, hey, good morning. Number 9. Have you ever told a lie? Even a little white lie? The fact that we have the term little white lie shows that we knowingly lie and try to justify it by categorizing the lie as positive or, at least a non-negative way. It's just a little white lie. Jesus said in John chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So if Christians are little Christ, because that's what the word means, Christian is a little Christ, are we to be the truth as well? The truth is everybody lies or uses deception, some more than others. And this particular commandment is a good example of why the Ten Commandments are called the moral law, because you get into morality issues. When is it okay to lie? When is it okay to lie? The 9th commandment states, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. It's Exodus 20:16. We teach children, in the simplified version of the 10 commandments, don't lie, or no lying. But as we shall see, that's not exactly what this commandment means, and that's where the moral part comes in. When is it okay to deceive? And when should we absolutely tell the whole truth and nothing but? Or should we always be the truth, 100% completely honest all of the time? Kids, I will say, never lie to your parents. You should always be honest with your parents. That's part of honoring them. But also, lying is something that only makes things worse later on. I read somewhere the phrase, a lie has no legs, meaning it can't stand by itself. So if you tell one lie, then you have to tell another to cover that, and then another, and another, and another. And you can't tell just one lie. Keep that in mind if you're ever thinking about telling a lie. So with that in mind, remember the overarching theme of the 10 Commandments is relationships. First, our relationship with God. Have only Him. Don't take His name in vain. No idols. Remember the Sabbath. And then also honor your parents because God gave you parents. But then that goes into the relationship with others. Parents, no murder, no adultery, no stealing, no lying, and no coveting, which we'll talk about next week. So it's important to be truthful in relationships because truth creates trust and falsehood creates distrust. And if you can't trust someone, why would you want a relationship with them? A society in which there is no trust will not exist for very long. Truth then and honest testimony is essential to a society. That is why, point 1, the main purpose of this command is justice in a society, which we'll talk about after I pray. Father, thank you for your word. Indeed, the Bible has much to say about lying and false testimony and dishonesty and your thoughts and feelings about it. So help us, Lord, as we look through this to truly understand your law of the 10 Commandments and to live our lives as a glory for you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. The main purpose of this command, again, is justice in society. There's no truth, there is no justice. Now, the Israelites didn't have a very well-organized justice system. They didn't have detectives or forensics or PowerPoint presentations of evidence to juries. In fact, they didn't have juries, they had the whole people. It was all verbal testimony. And so if all of your evidence is verbal testimony, it's important to have honest testimony, especially because many of the laws had the death penalty attached to them. So to help encourage people to be honest in their testimony and not bear false witness, the witness was also the first executioner. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 5 through 7, which say, Then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you shall stone that man or woman to death with stones. On the evidence of 2 witnesses, or of 3 witnesses, the one who is to die shall be put to death. A person shall not be put to death on the evidence of one witness. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. That's the key thing there. A witness says, yes, I saw them do this crime that requires the death penalty. And one or two others say, yes, we did too. Then they're handed stones. All right. In a simple desert society like they lived in at that time, nearly all the crimes were capital charges. And so a successful false witness would be equivalent to murder. You lie, and that person dies. You become a murderer. The command to not bear false witness against a neighbor could also be applied, of course, to gossiping, slandering, otherwise verbally damaging one's neighbor. That's especially true if you consider Leviticus 19:16. Everything always goes back to Leviticus. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. So to give false witness in a court of law is called perjury. And perjury threatens the integrity of the courts and thus again justice in society. False witnessing, also known as lying, is a violation of the truth that includes a conscious intent to deceive. So not just speaking an untruth, because that can happen all the time, right? You say something that you're not sure of, or maybe at the time that you knew it, it existed, you know. Where's mom? Well, she's in the bedroom. But I didn't realize, because I was in another part of the house, that she'd gotten up out of the bedroom and moved. Did I lie? No, I wasn't consciously intending to deceive. The facts had just changed. So, not just speaking an untruth, which may happen accidentally, but the intent to deceive with the untruth. Now, I'm sure everyone here has some funny story about kids trying to deceive their parents, right? Whether it was you doing it or the kids doing it to you. Sometimes you actually get away with it for many years. When we were kids, we used to sneak under the Christmas tree and see what Christmas presents we got. One year, me being the youngest and smallest, was under the tree when it fell over on top of me. And we put it back up, and it was a little crooked ever after. But it wasn't until like 15 years later when we told our mom, oh yeah, 1 year this happened. What? Oh man, we could have totally gotten away with it. We thought you knew. Oh well, anyway. When we get older, right, lying's not so funny though. It has more severe consequences. It can be very damaging to a person. It can even get you arrested. Which is why I always tell people, don't talk to the police without your lawyer present. It's a funny thing to say for a pastor and a retired cop, but don't talk to the police without your lawyer present, particularly the federal police. Most law codes have a section for lying to the police. In California, the Vehicle Code of all things, Vehicle Code Section 31, made it a misdemeanor, which means you could be arrested and taken to jail, to knowingly give false information, either verbally or in writing, to the officer enforcing the vehicle code. One night at the scene of a car crashed into a light pole and arrested both a husband and wife. Him for driving under the influence and her for lying, saying she was the driver. I was driving, officer. Really? He's this tall, you're this tall. Driver seat's back this far, passenger seat's back this far. He's got blood on his face from the steering wheel, you don't. No, I was driving. Well, what a jerk, making his wife lie to cover for him. If he just maned up and admitted, yeah, it was me, I mean, he would have suffered the consequences. She would have kept silent, she would have gone home instead of to jail. More severe consequences, not as much fun when we're older. It's difficult, maybe even impossible, to overstate the damage that a lie does to someone. Now, I read a story about a man who had lied to another man and it damaged that man's reputation. Years later, years go by, the liar's lying on his deathbed and he's trying to make amends and reconcile and get right with people, and he asks the man to come and begs his forgiveness. I'm sorry that I told that untruth about you. Please forgive me. The man says, I forgive you, but do something for me. Name it, the liar says. Just take this feather pillow, tear it open, and empty it out the window. Okay? Out go the feathers everywhere. The man says, now, pick all those up and put them back in the pillow. It's like, well, that's impossible. I said, exactly. I forgive you for what you did, but the damage that you caused cannot be undone. So a simple application of this commandment is always be honest, especially in a court of law or when your words can damage another person. That's the main theme you could say of this command, is not to harm another person with your testimony about them. So don't do that, whether in court or on social media or just between you and a friend in the four walls. We watched a great movie last night where that was happening, but here's how you can tell if you're bearing false witness, which includes gossip, because the person's not there to defend themselves. If you feel the need to justify your words somehow, like making a statement along the lines of, well, it's nothing I wouldn't say to their face. I knew people who said that all the time. Or qualifying your statement somehow. Like, well, everybody knows he said it about himself. They don't do it anymore. She had a good reason for it. I could go on and on, but the point is, if your statement about the person is not positive and encouraging, if it is negative and disparaging, if it needs qualification or justification, it probably should not be said. Now, I speak to myself as well as you here, because the Bible speaks to us all. And it's amazing how easy we can fall into that type of talk. Now, no false testimony is not the same as no lying, although the Bible is against almost any type of lying. But for now, point 2, no false witness does not mean no lying ever. But before I tell you when the Bible does justify lying, I caution you, don't use these exceptions, and they are exceptions to the general biblical rule of being truthful. Don't use these exceptions as justification for lying. But it seems that throughout Scripture, there's 3 particular scenarios when deception is biblically justified. And the first is inconsequential social arrangements. We do this all the time. How are you guys doing this morning? Fine. Good. Well. You can rephrase the question. So, like, well, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? Yes. Are you enjoying today? Yes. But generally, no harm, no foul, right? Inconsequential social arrangements is the first one. There's war and also opposition to criminal activity. So again, if lying in one of these situations brings you into conflict with God, choose God over lying. That's really the case in anything we do, whether it's conflicts between ourselves and God, whether it's between man's laws and God, or being false and a relationship with God. Always choose God over everything else. So, social situations where no harm or intent is meant or done to the other person. Jesus told his disciples in Matthew chapter 6, verses 17 and 18, in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who is in secret will reward you." Now, he's saying this because the Pharisees, they made a big show of it. They wanted people to know how religious they were. So they would put ashes and they'd look, oh, I'm fasting today. Oh, I am fasting today. Jesus says, when you fast, don't let anyone know. In other words, be deceptive. Don't look like you're fasting. Be deceptive, so to speak. They don't need to know what you're doing for God. It's not just don't be like the Pharisees. He said hide what you are doing from others. They don't need to know. Their not knowing doesn't harm them. And your intention is to keep your private devotions private, not to deceive people. You're not doing it just to, lie to people. You're doing it because this is between me and God and you don't need to know. The second time the social situation deception came into play was post-resurrection. Jesus is walking along the road to Emmaus. Luke chapter 24, 28 and 29, it says, "So they drew near the village to which they were going," meaning the 2 disciples. This is where we're going. "He acted as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, saying, 'Stay with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent.' So he went in to stay with them." He acted like he was going to keep walking instead of going with the disciples. That's the deception on his part. He wasn't going to keep walking. I mean, as soon as he broke the bread, he moved on, right? He wanted to be with them. But Jesus did this to provide an opportunity for the disciples to be hospitable. This is a culture of hospitality. And he's like, oh, I'm going to keep going. You guys are here. Oh, no, please, come in. Eat with us. It wouldn't have harmed them. It's a social situation. It's like being at your friend's house at supper time and they invite you to stay, but you know that you have a big appetite that day and they don't have enough food. So you say, oh, no, I have other plans, thanks. You're not intending to harm them. Just don't want to be a burden on them. Now, face, have you heard the term? Saving face, right? Face is a big part of Eastern cultures. In fact, the movie that we watched was about East Indians that lived in America, but they still have their culture. So you lie in that social situation, the person saves face. No harm, no foul. Everyone wins, or at least no one loses. That is one situation where it is biblically acceptable to not be 100% truthful. Now, the second situation is war. A couple people got that. War. What is it good for? All right. You guys are lucky. Earlier in my ministry, I would always reference pop songs from the 70s or 80s in my messages. I don't do that so much anymore. In war, I just took a theology class, public theology, and wrote my paper on just war theory. So there is this just war theory that says if you're going to go to war, there should be good reasons to do it, and also you should fight the war in a just way, reasonable. Don't attack civilians, that kind of stuff. So there are situations where war is justified biblically. And of course, people twist that just war theory to say, well, my war is just because, look, it meets these criteria. They don't go, here's the criteria, does my war meet this? No, then I'm not going to do it. But anyway, just war theory provides a framework to make sure that you're going to war for a reason. So if you're going to go to war, fight to win. That's the point. If there's justification to go to war, you don't go into war to lose. And so sometimes you need to be deceptive to do that, and there's biblical precedence again for this. An ambush, everyone knows an ambush. Oh, I got ambushed, right? It's a surprise attack. The enemy's not expecting it. You're not facing them head on. You're sneaking up on them, and you're attacking. God told Joshua, set an ambush against the city of Ai in Joshua 8:2. Common spelling, A-I, that city. God said Joshua set an ambush for this city. God himself set an ambush for Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir. So they destroyed each other in 2 Chronicles 20:22. Elisha, who worked with God when the enemy surrounded the city he was in. Remember that story? He comes out and the enemy's all surrounded, and he's surrounded by the enemy. They're looking for him, and he's like, oh, this isn't the city. I'll take you there. And he marches them to the capital, Samaria. And when God opens their eyes, they realize now they're surrounded and captured. That was deception. What's the other one up there? Oh yes, spying, yes. A lot of people love James Bond, right? But no one likes a spy. God instructed Moses to spy out the promised land as they prepared to enter and defeat it. What happens if spies are caught? We hold them and trade them for our spies, but generally speaking, espionage is a capital crime. You get caught spying for someone else, they kill you, or against someone else. So usually they're executed. But God told Moses in Numbers 13:2, send in spies to search out the land. Likewise, when they were going against Jericho, 2 spies went into the city of Jericho, and Rahab hid the spies, and it was good for her to do that. That was in Joshua chapter 2. She was commended for her deception and rewarded by God, according to Hebrews 11:31 and James 2:25. Those say that she was commended for her faith, but as our brother James said, and we remember, right? Faith without works is dead. Show me your faith, and I'll show you my works. So her faith was displayed in her deception. Those were wartime deceptions and were approved in the Bible. So finally, the deception that is biblically acceptable when it is used to oppose criminals. Now, as a police officer, people lie to me all the time. You know how I knew? Their lips were moving. It's a lawyer joke, but anyway. When I lied to them, and I did, it was in the form of what I called a ruse. So there's like a little white lie. I used a ruse. I didn't lie. Well, no, you lied. Oh, I thought that was an armored vehicle for a second. We need to cover these windows. I would use a ruse to defeat criminals. More than once, I would say, you sure you didn't do it? Because we got you on video going in the store and stealing. We didn't have any video of them. Sometimes they would fall for it, sometimes not. I used confidential informants all the time to obtain evidence. Send them in to do something, they'd come out, report to me, I'd write a search warrant, 10 days later we'd execute it, we'd find all the stuff that we were looking for, people would be arrested. That's a form of deception, just like spying, right? I used to conceal my motorcycle on sidewalks behind bushes to catch speeders, because if you sit out in the middle of the street, they see you. So I would use deception to enforce the law. Now in the Bible, the Egyptian midwives in Exodus chapter 1, verses 15 through 21, remember them? Shiphrah and Puah, I think. They lied to Pharaoh. Pharaoh says, there's too many of these Hebrews, we need to get rid of them. You, midwives, when they're having a boy baby, and they didn't. And so he's like, why are all these boy babies being born? He calls them in, what's going on? They're like, oh, these Hebrews are strong. They're not like you weak Egyptian women. Before we even get a chance to get there, they've given birth. We can't do anything then. They lied to Pharaoh to oppose his criminal act of wanting to kill these babies, and God rewarded them, saved their lives, and gave them their own families. God told Samuel, prophet Samuel, go anoint David as the next king. And he said, if I go there and Saul sees me, he's going to kill me. So God says, well, take a heifer and tell him you're there to sacrifice. It's a half-truth. He was there to sacrifice, but his main purpose was to anoint King David. Saul was a criminal. And finally in 1 Kings 18, 3 through 4, Jezebel, she wanted to kill, you guys remember who she wanted to kill? All the prophets of God, right? She was a Baal worshiper. She wanted to kill all the prophets of God, but a man named Obadiah hid 100 of them in a cave, lying to her and not letting her know that he was doing that, saving those lives. So I argue that the Bible shows there are times when deception, lying, is acceptable, which means the 9th commandment is not a complete prohibition on lying, but as it states, bearing false witness against a neighbor. So if the 9th commandment really prohibited lying, then consider the classic question. Are you morally obligated to tell the Gestapo at your door that you're harboring Jews in your cellar? Are we to be like the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who believed that deception was wrong? He said if people lie, then the whole society is built on lies and then it crumbles. So he said if an axe murderer asked you where his victim was, you should tell him, because you should always be truthful. If he then went and killed that person, it's on him, not on you. That's why I said this commandment is a good example of morals. There are many gray areas in life. Rarely outside of God. God is pretty clear cut. But rarely outside of that are things black and white, right or wrong, good or bad, truth or lie. And so we have the Bible to guide us through this gray world into the good and away from the bad. So use the Bible, God's Word, to verify what I say next. The default is truth. But there are times when God allows lies. Now, I've given you all the references. They're in your bulletin. They were on the screen there. Look them up. Check them. But chew on that point for a bit. So, these rules, these moral laws and such, don't apply if you're not a Christian. You're not bound by God's laws if you're not a Christian. You'll suffer the consequences for breaking the laws for sure, but you're not going to try and live your life that way. So if you're not a Christian, lie all you want, slander all you want, perjure all you want, but realize if you do, your relationships are going to be damaged, and you might hear from a Christian that what you're doing will destroy those relationships, because the third point, as Christians, we are to speak the truth in love. So Revelation 22:15, here's an interesting thing. Outside the heavenly city are, quote, the dogs and sorcerers and the sexually immoral and murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. Jerry Vines, a longtime well-known preacher, observed this verse and says, there seems to be something about us that either causes us to want to lie or to want to hear a lie. And you could say that's human nature. However, as Christians, that's our old nature. Colossians 3, 9 and 10, do not lie to one another, seeing as you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. We are being made Christ-like through a process God uses called sanctification. We're changed from being lost, sinful souls to redeemed little Christs or Christians. Ephesians 4:15 states part of that is speaking the truth in love, right there on the screen. We're not perfect, but we are heading that way. And the great thing, one of the most beautiful things, theologically speaking, about being a Christian, about accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior, turning from your sin towards God, receiving that forgiveness and everything, is that in God's eyes you are perfect. You are sanctified. While we're still working it out here in this life, God views us as being done. Because when he looks at us, he sees his son, Jesus. We are not perfect, but God is perfect, and he hates lying. There's passages in Proverbs here that all give evidence to that fact. God hates a lying tongue. God hates false witness, one who sows discord. It's an abomination, and we have power in our speech. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. That's a hard lesson to learn. Such radical changes take time to fully implement. So if you were constantly traveling and you change your heading just 1 degree each day, 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree each day, in 6 months, 180 days, you'd be heading opposite the way you started. So if you started north, in 180 days, you'd be heading south. But in the meantime, you'd cover a lot of ground, right? You wouldn't be back where you started, because you're moving forward each day. And so you're like in this spiral expanding outwards and going differently. You'd just be going in the opposite direction where you started going. That's okay, because we start our life journey heading away from God. And we don't want to get back to the start, right? When we start life and we're away from God, we don't want to be there. We want to be with God, towards God. So we're heading in the opposite direction from God, from heading in the opposite direction towards God, away from where we started. So when you're traveling, there's course corrections you got to make before you arrive at your destination. If driving, first you got to get on the right road, and then you got to constantly adjust to stay in your lane, right? In farming, you got to get the right equipment to the field, and you got to adjust as you steer up and down the rows of crops. Even if you're letting the GPS do it in some of these fancy rigs, it's still got to adjust because things are happening. Flying is the same, constant corrections made for course, for wind, for speed, all of that stuff. Sailing, storms can blow you off course, you must adjust. Life is the same, especially the Christian life journey. So it begins with being saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. We get an immediate course correction, 180 degrees, turning towards God. That's called repentance. But we don't know the way, and we must learn, with many course corrections along the way through Scripture, through Christian relationships, through prayer. And this applies to all areas of our life. But today, talking about speaking the truth in love, it's not easy to tell the truth. It's very easy to do things like, how are you today? Fine. And I want to discuss with you that my life is really a wreck. I want to put on a good face because I don't want to get into it with you. But we have to speak the truth in love. We have to get to know each other. Look, I can tell you're not fine. Do you want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. Tell me what's going on. Now that might begin, with an awakening, a recognition that there is a problem with your talk as we go through these course corrections. You wouldn't dream of lying in court, right? No one here is going to go perjure themselves in court because there's penalties for it. But you don't hesitate to pass on some juicy gossip. Or you bless people to their face but curse them behind your back. You know you need change, so you pray. Ask God to stop your tongue before you say negative things. And then you focus on the good and positive and pray. Ask God to give you the words to express these good and positive things to people. And finally, you help brothers and sisters in Christ do the same. Fasten your seatbelts. Coming in for a landing. The 9th commandment tells us not to bear false witness against our neighbors. Don't say anything about them that is untrue and or could damage them in any way. The default option is truth, but sometimes, rarely, deception is biblically acceptable. As Christians, we are God's representatives here on earth and his holy people who should live differently than the rest of the world. And a good way to do that is to speak the truth in love to each other and to the world. So I'll end this with a story of a woman who could not stand gossip and did something to end it. Her name was Hannah More. D.L. Moody tells this story. Hannah More's method was a sure cure for scandal. When she was told anything derogatory of another, her invariable reply was, "Come, we will go ask if it be true." This effect sometimes ludicrously painful. The talebearer was taken aback, stammered out qualification. Begged that no notice might be taken of the statement. "Oh, forget I said that. Never mind." But the good lady was inexorable. Couldn't be stopped. Off she took the scandalmonger to the scandalized to make inquiry and compare accounts. "So-and-so just said this about you. Is that true?" "Oh." It is not likely that anyone ventured a second time to repeat a gossipy story to Hannah More. Keep Hannah More in mind when tempted to bear false witness. She may not be there to call you on it, but God will be. So let's pray. Father, thank you mainly for your grace and forgiveness, because we indeed are not perfect by no stretch of the imagination, and yet you love us still. For the many sins that we have committed and will commit, you have forgiven us through the blood of your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you, Jesus, for that. Help us to not just take this commandment and do the negative thing, but instead to make it a positive. Not only will we not bear false witness, but we will bear good news, good tidings, positive, encouraging words. We will speak the truth in love, that we may honor and glorify you, that we may see lives changed by the gospel of Jesus. Thank you, Lord, for your law, for these laws that show us our shortcomings and show us the need for a Savior. And thank you, Jesus, for being that Savior. We pray all this in your name.